I got my dog Apollo a little over 2 years ago, and he's the greatest dog I could have ever asked for. Getting a dog can be scary, especially now that everything's online. So in this video we're going to talk about a couple things that I did and things I probably would have done a bit different if I would have gotten a dog today. So number one is think about your lifestyle. The main question is, what kind of job do you work and what kind of schedule do you have? Do you work full-time in the office, 5 days a week? Do you work a hybrid model? Do you work full-time from home? Your job is your main priority, and that's the thing that you should work around your dog. The other thing is, how often do you go out and you meet with your friends? A dog is a big responsibility, and sometimes you will have to say no to those things to be able to walk your dog, to be able to train your dog, to be able to feed your dog. Similar with your lifestyle is, do you have anyone around you to help you, especially with those early months of having a dog, like family or friends who can maybe pop in and have a visit? In our case, we didn't really have anyone, so we had to make sure that our job and lifestyle worked around the dog. The second point I'd mention is, what kind of breed is it you want, and does it fit your lifestyle? If you've noticed, there's obviously a theme here that your lifestyle has to match the dog's life as well. So for example, if you want to get a border collie is a working dog. They need a lot of mental stimulation, a lot of physical stimulation. So are you prepared to provide that for the dog? Similarly to that is, how much time do you have to dedicate for those things? Are you able to go out every single day for your dog, to train your dog, to play with your dog? But let's not forget, dogs in general do need to be walked. Not only walked, but with some kind of exercise, and they need to be taken outside on a regular basis. Don't get it twisted that that if you get a certain type of dog, for example a pug, they can live inside their whole life. That is not the case, and you have to only take them out once in a while. Dogs in general definitely should go out, and I think in my honest opinion should be going out at least once or twice a day. The third thing I think about is, are you ready financially? A dog, especially at the beginning, can cost a lot of money. The main cost will be the upfront cost. So for example, buying your puppy, getting all the equipment at the first stage, so getting crate, if you obviously want to crate them, dog beds, bowls, vaccinations, and those are obviously the first initial costs. There's obviously reoccurring costs such as insurance, yearly vet visits, one-off accidents that may occur that you will have to take your dog, or flea and worm treatment, which is also a regular cost. So just keep that in mind, that it will be a regular expense. Another thing I forgot to mention actually is dog food, and dog food is quite expensive depending on what route you take, whether it is kibble or wet food. Other thing you should mention that we didn't really think about is holidays. We always enjoy going on holiday, but before getting a dog, we never thought that we'd have to arrange for somewhere for the dog to be somewhere. So think about where you're going to leave your dog when you go on holiday. Is it going to be kennels, or is it going to be home boarding, or do you have friends and family that you can leave your dog with, and are you comfortable with that decision? And think about the cost associated with those things. So once you've thought about all of those things that I've mentioned previously, you then want to start doing some actual research in the type of dog that you want to get. So like I mentioned before, make sure you narrow down the breed that you think is fit for your lifestyle, and then you can narrow down your search a lot more. One of the things that I should mention is, you can get a Kennel Club registered dog. So if you go through this site, all the breeders there will be assured, so that means that regular checks are carried out on the breeder, and that you will normally be able to find your dog's lineage on the website. There is another route where you don't have to go through the Kennel Club registered website, and these could be independent breeders. Some of them still are assured, but I think you should do your due diligence beforehand. So in our case, we went through a website called Pets for Homes, and I'll leave both links in the description below. When going through a website like Pets for Homes, you want to make sure you check thoroughly through each post. Once you've narrowed down the pup that you've decided on, you want to be as thorough as possible when going through the pictures. Maybe they might even have an Instagram. You want to make sure you do your due diligence before you organize or arrange any sort of meetup. So leading on to that nicely is the last part. You definitely want to go and see your breeder. Whoever you're buying the dog from, you want to go and see their environment, where the puppy is being brought up. For example, Apollo, he was brought up in a farm, there was other dogs around. You also definitely want to see the mum and dad. If you can, then you can check you know, how they are, what their temperament is like. Another thing that you definitely want to do is ask your questions. So have questions prepared beforehand so you can ask the breeder themselves. For example, some of the things that we wanted to ask was, has Apollo been around a vacuum? Has Apollo been around the washing machine when it's been on? Do you get regular visits? Has Apollo been around other kids? Obviously, we saw that Apollo was around other dogs, so that was fine, and around other animals, and he was fine being outside with other animals in the farm. But you want to know what kind of environment the dog is being brought up. Once you've decided that you are certain that you want to take your puppy home, then you can go and revisit them and organize for a pickup. Once you're there, you definitely want to make sure that you take their required vaccination booklet. You want to make sure they're of age, that they can leave the house. That's normally around 12 weeks. Some of the things that we got given, for example, is their food that they were already on, so they wouldn't get an upset stomach, and a blanket that they had their mum and dad sent on. So you want to be also prepared when you take your dog home. So in the car, you want to take, you know, a poo bag. You want to put them in a secure place. You want to have that blanket around them as well. Obviously, they could have accidents, so just be prepared for that. And if it's a long journey, make sure you cut up the journey and let them have a little break. Moving on to some of the things that I think we could have done a bit better. One of the main things is, don't get a puppy when you're moving houses. I originally thought, so when we've got Apollo, when we were looking for Apollo, we were in the process of moving house and even more moving cities. So one thing I'd recommend is not to rush getting your dog. You don't want two big things happening in your life at once, i.e. moving and getting a puppy, because especially at the beginning, getting a puppy is a lot of hard work, and it depends on how you obviously want to bring your puppy up and how much effort you want to put in. That is a lot, as well as moving houses. So I would wait until you do one thing to do the other. Another thing that I'd recommend is to take some time off of work. So you want to make sure, maybe take a week or two between yourselves, just to make sure the puppy's settled down at home, because it is a scary environment and a scary time for the puppy and for yourselves. It's a new thing that you're going to both go through, especially if it's your first dog. And that way, I think you'd feel a lot better as well in the long run. The last thing I'd say that I would maybe do a bit better is, before getting a puppy, you can do a lot of research. And there is a lot of videos, a lot of blogs, a lot of information out there online. And for me, as a first-time dog owner, I really wanted to do the best thing for Apollo at the time from the get-go. And that's like with training, like, you know, teaching them how to sit before they eat and all of that stuff. But I would definitely recommend giving it a couple of weeks before you do any sort of training. You don't want to stress yourself out. You don't want to get worried. Just let the puppy be a puppy and enjoy its time on being a puppy. The training will come shortly after, and if anything, training a puppy is probably one of the easiest things that you can do. But after a couple of months, once they get into the teenage stage, they will try and test you, and they will have to basically start from scratch. Not only that, training is forever. You can start as early as you want, as soon as you get your puppy, but don't take it overboard and don't get stressed out. When I mean training, I don't mean everyday manners. Those he has pretty much nailed down nowadays, but we still do obedience training in the park. We do some retrieving, those kind of a little bit more advanced kind of training that we do nowadays, but we still do it on a regular basis. Well, I hope it's been useful walking through some of the things I recommend and some of the steps that I maybe would have done a bit differently in my journey on getting Apollo. Moving forward, I'd like to make some videos on dog training, some of the day-to-day life that we live, and let me know if there's any other questions that you have that are on something I've mentioned, but you'd like for me to go in more depth, and I'd be glad to do a video on that. Bye. Well, so that's the video. Maybe should I mention that's my first video. Well, that's my first video, and I hope it's been useful for some of you at least, especially being first-time dog owners or dog buyers. Well, I hope that's been useful. Bless me. Well, I hope that's been useful. Let me see. Well,